top of the engine sounded like baby's rattles. Absolutely shagged. In the end, we bought new pieces, which turns out is a good thing. Those are the new pieces. So that is the new version of the sprocket. That is what the sprocket turned into after being ridden around Europe. It's obviously no teeth anymore, but I did find the teeth, which is basically all of metal mush paste which had been baked at, I don't know what temperature. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, I ended up having to scrape that off of all of the internal components of the engine. And yeah, that cost me $150 to get a new timing chain with 3 new gears and all the new little buttons and everything to get it all done. The reason that I wanted it rebuilt though was for a very special purpose, was because I don't know if any of you know the racing circuit is called the Nürburgring. I decided what better way to finish my trip as I was nearing home was to do a lap of the Nürburgring. I was told if I dropped below 40 miles an hour, I was basically going to die. Because you're like going down the straights that basically, once you wind one of these up to about 50 miles an hour, that's it, there is no more. You can attach rocket boosters, it just doesn't go any faster, because the engine can't, there's nothing you can do. So you're going down one of these straights at 50 miles an hour, and you look in your mirror at this orange Lamborghini, that is getting larger very quickly. And what I got told was basically, don't drop below 40 because you're going to die, and stay on the right-hand side, because luckily, being a German racetrack, there are still rules, which means that people can only overtake on the left. If you stay on the left, people will not overtake you on the right. They will get mad and they will get you fined, but so as long as you keep right. So I thought, okay, so this is me going around the circuit. There were lots of photographers, which are all on the banks around the circuit, and they basically earn money by taking photos of all these cars, and they then put them on their websites, which are all linked, and they'll have a picture of you, which has got, do not steal this, you bastards, give me some money. And if you give them some money, you then get the full version of it, which doesn't say, please do not steal. So I decided to have a look round, and it turns out almost all of the photographers stopped taking photos of any other cars when they saw them. And I ended up with so many photos of me going around, and in the end I started to spot them. Well, once you're up to 45, there's nothing else you can do. So I'm just giving a thumbs up for all as I'm going around. And that's Sammy the Iranian snail, which is a snail which I got around. I spent the whole trip looking for the perfect company toy until I finally found it. And in Iran I found this boss-eyed snail, and he's still on the front now. And I steal the same shopping basket, which I didn't steal from my local supermarket before I left. It's now done 36 countries and about 100,000 miles-ish, not really too sure. I'm tempted to go and tell them, all the cool places that their basket's been, but that doesn't mean they've got to kind of say it's okay to steal our stuff. So, borrow it. But my favourite photo is this one. Now, the problem that we had here was that I was told, stick right and don't drop below 40 miles an hour. So when I wound it up to 50, I was like, this is awesome. There are some corners on the Nürburgring which you can't get round at 40 to 50 mile an hour. You need to slow right down, especially if you're on the outside line. So I had this problem that on the fourth corner, and I was going, yeah, and I was leaning it over. I was leaning it over, until the foot pegs were scraping the floor, and I go, I'm on a Honda 90 going too fast around the corner of the Nürburgring. This is a big problem. But because I'm leant so far over, I can't really let off, because otherwise it's going to upset the geometry of the bike. And mine, I think, is fitted with lots of hinges in between all of the components, because as you go down the road, if you sort of wobble it, it does that. It goes down the road. You really can't unsettle it. So yeah, I ended up with this photo of me. I've had to stick my foot out and I'm riding supermoto style. I used to have a supermoto back in England, so luckily I learned that. But yeah, I have got I think the next one here zoomed in. In terms of the perfect, looking at your exit point, I'm actually doing everything you're supposed to, except I'm on a Honda 90. Left, right over, foot peg, I think by this point it's bounced off, because as I'm going round the corner, that might even be mine. It's going. You got all of the people on the banks watching all these supercars, oh yeah, Ferrari. Every corner I went round, everyone was stood up cheering. Yeah, I had a really good time doing it. And this is where I hope these ones are in the right. Yes. Right. This is the music video that I made to sum up the whole trip. By this point, I was back in Europe. For me, I've done Europe quite a few times, and nothing really out of the ordinary happened, which is why I basically did Europe in like one story, which is about the Nuremberg, maybe about the engine. But yeah, so I'm now back home within reason, and I've made this music video to tell the story of the entire trip of me riding back home. This is the second to last video. This one's 3 minutes long, the next one's like a couple of minutes long, so don't worry, you get to go home. And yeah, so this tells the story of me and my motorcycle. This I actually made while in Turkey, so I haven't got back home yet. So it says 13,000 miles, but it's slightly wrong because I haven't made it home by this point. But yeah, this is the little video that I made on the road to help tell the people on YouTube the story of my trip. And, it tells the story of me and my motorcycle, and it's down to the Pet Shop Boys, always on my mind, because lyrics are very poignant to my motorcycle, because I haven't loved her quite as often as I should have. I definitely haven't treated her quite as well as I should have. But I do love her, and she's always on my mind. So this is my attempt to say sorry. I'll tell you a story about how I got this shot, but for the moment, if you appreciate, this total thing is over about 1.5 kilometres, 2 kilometres. With a side wind, playing the drums, and with a bend in the road. Yeah, so for that shot, if you remember as I entered Iran, I bumped into 2 Germans who were riding DR350s. One of them was a woman called Angelica, who was very, very outgoing, very cool, and always up for some sort of chaos. and the other guy, Mike, was sort of a very sort of level-headed chap. I've been riding with him for a couple of days and whatnot, and then just as we were getting near Esfahan, I think it was, and it was going to be time to part ways, and I said, right, I've got an idea. I need you to help me film the final shot of my music video. Because I've been filming these little pieces here and there, and I showed them the footage in Thailand of me playing the keyboards, which I had to use my friend's Thai girlfriend. She hired a tuk-tuk for the day, explained to him the ridiculous story of what I need to do. Which is basically, I'm going to jam the throttle fully open on my motorcycle. I'm going to strap a keyboard to it so I now can't use any of the controls. And I'm going to sing the Pet Shop Boys always on my mind, while, because the throttle's jammed fully open, I'm going to regulate the speed using the rear brake, while only looking at the camera, singing and playing the keyboard, and it's all going to work. And because Bangkok's really busy, the only street that's actually empty is the one that runs past the police station. Which in the clip, if you ever watch it again, you will see it briefly as it goes by. So I said, right, so I showed him that, and Angelica was like, that's awesome, yes, what can we do? So, right, well, you can't buy drum kits in Iran for some reason, I don't know where, can't find them, but I reckon I can make one out of aluminium dinner plates, some threaded bar, some buckets, and some random bits of wood, which I can get from a hardware store. And once again, I'm going to jam my bike with the throttle fully open, and I'm going to go through this whole thing. Now, it is one massive take. It's like a minute long, and yeah. So I reckon we can do it. I need you to sit on his bike backwards, hanging off of the back, filming me. You need to keep it sort of fairly still so we can get a shot. Yeah, and eventually we did it. In the film, this is actually what we use to put the credits through. Because I said to her, I need you to keep at least a third of the screen, or up to a half, clear, so that we can have the credits scroll through there. Because this is actually the final sequence of the film. And we did it. It took about 5 or 6 hours to film that video in the end. So many takes, because bizarrely, the only thing that kept going wrong was me fluffing up the drums. Because if you ever do watch it again, it is actually perfect. Every single drum roll is actually separate. Some of them the cymbals go first, and some of them they don't have smashes and all these different things. In terms of technique, yeah, it's crap. But because you've got to balance, and I was balancing the entire thing using my left knee. So as I'm going down the road, you see the left knee's going in and out while I'm looking at the camera, then controlling the speed with my right foot while playing and singing. Unfortunately, the UK's Advanced Motorcycling Federation won't actually accept this in order to get some form of qualification. Because I think that there are not many people in the UK who can control a motorcycle without much precision. So that is my attempt at trying to summarise it. And the final clip, which is known as being my Hitler video. Now, if any of you haven't seen it, you're probably incredibly worried right now. And where is it? Now there's a brilliant film which is called Downfall, and it tells the rather cheery story of the final days of the Nazi empire, whatever you want to call it, the Third Reich. As World War II was coming to a close, and it was basically Hitler in the bunker trying some sort of last-ditch efforts to try and stop the entire world from annihilating. So this rather cheery film is a very good film. It is acted perfectly, and it is a brilliant film. Tells it, but of course, he speaks in German. Now, to anybody who doesn't speak German, what this means is that you've got basically Hitler filmed perfectly. With like very good camera angles, and it tells a very good story. But you can put subtitles over the top to make Hitler say whatever you want. And these are known as Hitler parodies. This is kind of a sort of fairly common thing on the internet within reason. YouTube's got loads of them up there. I decided to make one of these. I was in Dubai, and I was stuck waiting for my bike to arrive from India. So I thought, right, well, I'll sit down for took me I think a day or 2 days or so to do this. Just started sort of playing around with ideas. I wonder what I can make Hitler say. This is the eventual story that I came up with. I quite like it personally. So I will click play, and it's kind of a bit of a addition to my story.
Es ist dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu durchbrechen. Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow, und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg-Marsdorf-Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steiners wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Sorry to interrupt. I will say a space hopper over here, I believe you call a hoppity hop, which is a thing as a kid you sort of bounce on, and Morrison's is a supermarket chain, just to help further, because otherwise it could get confusing.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodel, Krebs und Butter. Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer schickt Sie? Wenn wir warten, Sie können Befehl zu übersetzen! Der Militär hat sich belogen! Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS! Die gesamte Generalität ist nichts weiter als ein Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge! Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbüßt sind, Feiglinge! Verräter! Was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich! Die Generalität ist das Geschmutz des deutschen Volkes! Sie ist ohne Ehre! Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre am Militär sind! Sie haben sich mit Messer gabelt! Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen nur verhindert! Es hat mich jeden Monat mit Widerstand in die Welt gelegt! Ich hatte gut daran getan! Und Jahren alle Höheroffiziere liquidieren zu lassen, wie Stalin! Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein das Beste gestellt, ganz Europa erobert. Verräter! Von Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt an deutschen Waffen. Aber alle diese Verräter werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden das Saufen beruhig dich doch. Meine Befehle sind in den Wind gestoßen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jag ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
So that's a final insight into the way that my mind works. That, as far as I can tell, does the best job of me being able to sort of ad-lib and tell the story. Some people who run their own presentations have criticised me because I still have never rehearsed this talk. I've given it quite a few times now, but I don't have a script. And one of my friends at the UK Horizons Adventure Rally actually he was there, and I said to him, why are you at this talk? This is the 4th time you've seen it, and you actually met me and rode with me on the trip. You were the guy who pushed me down the motorway. And he said, yeah, but it's different every time. And it is. So in this one, I know there was the odd anecdote I put in, and then some I don't. Because I don't have a scripted thing that can feel fake. It's what I think the story needs to sort of think it together. And if I told every anecdote, we would still be here next week. It's an absolutely brilliant trip. All started because somebody told me that I couldn't do it. And I thought, why not? What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to pick a bike that allows me to do it. And if anything goes wrong, it will cost me pennies to fix. And I reckon I'm going to get the friendliest reception from people like you. So, yeah, that's where I'll wrap up, I think, because I've overrun by quite a bit. I've been there. Oh, Jesus, 3 hours.
3.5 hours, well.
Yeah, it was once 3.5 hours. Yeah, so what I will say now is that should you have been here a lot longer than you really should have, and you need to go home, then feel free. Feel free to also walk past the selection of my films, which I have to say, which all detail this trip. I promise you they are far more organised and much more professional than this talk which I've just given. It's 72 minutes long, and the Iran section hopefully gave you an idea of how you can tell so much more story when it's kind of scripted and put together. The shots change much more fluidly. And they do come with the money-back guarantee, and I 100% stand by this. It's better the long way round or your money back. And honestly, I probably stand by that. I've yet to have a single person ever take me up on that. I normally get emails from wives saying, what have you done? My husband has just bought a Honda 90. I do get a lot of that. Because,
my dad just bought one.
Yes, Rachel's dad has just bought one as well. Once every week I get a new person who comes up, who on Facebook sends me a picture of their new bike and the plan that they've got with them then makes. They're going to go to Spain and buy a pizza and bring it back before it goes mouldy. Just like weird things like that, because anytime somebody does a stupid trip, we always pick the Honda 90 because it looks silly and it's always fun. It is the most fun you can have on a motorcycle. There's other bikes which are more thrilling, and I had a Husky 600 Supermoto, I had a 900cc bike, all other different types. But nothing puts a smile on my face every time I try and get one of those roundabout. And you'll go, whoa. And then you take it off-road and you look at a huge section of bog and you're like, definitely not going to make it through that. If I hit it flat out, I reckon I should make it at least halfway. And it might go wrong and you'll cartwheel and you'll smash the mirrors off. I have actually got one. I was given it a couple of weeks ago. That's probably got an estimated lifespan of about a month before it gets smashed off on something else. And yeah, you just pick them up, drag them out of the mud and carry them. So the most fun you can have on a bike. Yeah, so the films are $25 with the Ed March money-back guarantee. And I will now take questions. Let's go for questions. If anyone has any? Yes?
That is the same bike, I gather.
Yes, that is the same bike. I do change the engines for different trips and for different purposes. So for the Malaysia trip, I had the standard 90cc engine in it because that's the world's most popular engine. So you can get parts anywhere over there. If you go to Vietnam, in the supermarkets, they sell chain and sprocket sets and like piston rebuild kits for that bike. Because the entire country runs on just that bike, they can stock every part for every motorcycle in the country. So that was that one. When I went through the Arctic Circle, I took a 110cc engine because those are more popular in Europe. And on this trip, we've actually got the Lifan 125 engines because over here, they're the most popular one, although they're still not that popular because most of the bikes are all big bikes over here. We can get some spare parts off eBay, and we get an extra 2 radial horsepower as well, so we can hold. When they're running right, we can hold about 80 kilometres an hour. Earlier on, when I had Rachel's clear exhaust, I went into Toronto and back, and I did about 85 the whole way. But my exhaust is so full of dirt, I can only do about 75. So, you need to work out a way. If anyone knows how you can get all the crap out of a completely sealed exhaust pipe, then please tell me, so I can mix the more speed. But yes, so the same bike. I changed the spokes in the Arctic Circle because my wheel exploded. I'm driving down the road, and when you're riding on like soft snow, it's about that deep, the bike's constantly sinking and bobbing and like that. And I was like, okay, now I'm on snow. Got back onto the smooth highway, and I was still going down the road. Hang on a minute. And looked, and I only had about a third of the spokes there. And I had the bike like next to me. And because it's a semi-automatic, it doesn't stall. So as I twisted the throttle off of the bike, you can make it ride forwards. And as I twisted the throttle, I could actually watch the centre of the wheel go clunk, and then it would start to turn the tyre because the inner and the outer could move like that. So I got new spokes for it, little random things. Put new bushes in the suspension. Just upgrade shock absorbers. Yes, those are really good. These ones actually have damping in them. So you hit a bump, and 2 months later you're not still bouncing, which is very good. Yeah, other than that, just little wear and tear pieces and things. Any other questions?
Where do you sleep every night?
Where do I sleep every night?
Where, like, how do you find somewhere to sleep?
On the Malaysia trip, it was very, very easy. Over there, hotels are a maximum of about $10. As soon as you leave all of the tourist traps, or where any backpackers bus terminal is, basically, they're all about $10. And I was just riding until I saw the word hotel. When you see it and you stop, and it's not really more than $10. And then when you're hungry, you just wait until you see the word restaurant. Then you stop and eat there. Riding back from Malaysia is probably the easiest. Probably the easiest thing I've ever done. You just wake up when you want. You don't need to look out the window. You just know it's going to be sunny. I had 3 days of rain in the first 7 months. And those 3 days were joined together, and those were in Vietnam. So if I had gone to North Vietnam, I wouldn't have had any rain for 7 months. But yeah, just look for the word hotel and stop. In Europe, it's look for a field that you can camp in where nobody finds you, basically, because I can't afford hotels.
What was your starting budget?
Starting budget of this trip.
Yeah, you said you kind of put it off for 2 years that you're going to go, so I think you were saving money during that
Yes,
time.
yeah. It cost £7,500, which current exchange rate is about $13,000, I believe. And I came pretty close to that. I think I went slightly over, but I only got like a couple of $100 or so. I did spend a lot of money on a lot of things. Like I spent $800 going to Everest Base Camp, $500 bribing the Cambodian army, $3,000 was on shipping the bike. So if I was to do the sensible thing, and what you should do is you should fly there, buy a local bike, and ride it, and then ride it until you need to get a plane somewhere, and then sell it, and then buy a new bike in the next destination. And always ride the bike that is ridden by the locals, because you can get all the parts, they're really cheap, and everything's designed for you. And that's what I should have done, and within reason, logically, that's what I should do. I should buy a new Honda 90 every time I need to ship. But because she's mine and I love her, I have to take the same one.
What kind of range were you getting on, like fuel range?
On the standard 90 engine, the tank is 3.7 litres, and you can get about 160, 170 kilometres out of that. If you're actually like moving at a decent rate, basically flat out. You've normally got 2 speeds, it's yes and no.
Did you ever have to carry extra fuel or anything?
On this trip, I started carrying extra fuel, and I had a 5-litre metal can in the front basket. For the first 3 months, I didn't use it, so I actually gave it away because it's pointless. Because everybody in these countries rides a bike which has got a range of 160 kilometres. Therefore, why would there be an area with no fuel?
So even going through places like Iran or places like that, or it's not an issue?
Yeah, I did. When I was in Nepal, I was riding through the dried out glacier beds. I did get 2 1.5-litre Fanta bottles. I filled those up with fuel and I strapped them to the side of the camper box. But I think I used one once. But most of the time, because the other thing is that if you've got spare fuel, it's actually good because you can ride flat out. You go, I've only got 10 miles left, who cares? And there will always be a petrol station in like 9 miles, it's weird. you'll always be there. If you don't have the extra fuel, you go, oh, I've got 10 miles left, and then you like lower your speeds, you get further, then you end up just chugging along, and then you start. I could have gone flat out anyway. But yeah, for this trip I didn't carry extra fuel. Anything else?
What did you carry for clothes? Like, what did you, like, obviously, you just, like, t-shirt, shorts seem to be the fair.
I had a pair of Kevlar jeans, which I wore once it got to a temperature that wasn't like painful. But yeah, just standard clothes. The way that I did it was that I basically had the same size panniers. One pannier is filled with clothes, you know, so like a week's worth of underwear, things, t-shirts, and one pair of jeans, two pairs of shorts, and one jumper, which I didn't need, except to go to Everest. And and that was it. Tropical sleeping bag on the other side. I only had one pair of shoes. That was it. On this trip as well, I didn't actually have any camping equipment. I didn't have any stoves or any tent or anything because it was pointless. Because when I was in Nepal, the hotels were $1 a night. So you're looking at the tent if you had one. Well, I did carry one for the first 3 months. I didn't use it and then I lost it. And then I thought, there's no point in buying another one. But when you're looking at a room for $1 or your tent, but it doesn't really take much to work it out.
Are you planning on staying in Canada long enough to actually see some nice weather so that you'll like it better? Because I've been following you. I had to come here today because it just was scary to see somebody else in some of the conditions you've been in the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, well, in terms of how long we're going to be in Canada, you can only basically stay for 6 months at a time. We've already been here for like 5 months, and we have just got an extension of another 3. So yeah, we've got now another 4 months left, which you normally shouldn't be able to get within reason, but because we entered in Alaska and we've ridden the whole way, they can see, well, you're probably not working because this is a ridiculous way to try and avoid. But we're only going to give you another 3 months, so you get out, and then you can enter at some point. Yeah, so we're going out to Newfoundland, and then from there we're going to drop down to Tennessee. I'm talking at the Tour Tech rally in Washington State. I assume they've seen my YouTube stuff. And Tour Tech and the whole BMW crowd actually seem to really like it. But whenever I do all this stuff, I always try and keep it light-hearted. And I try to take the piss out of myself more than I take the piss out of them. And I'm only trying to point out the things that, to me, I cannot justify spending more than the cost of all of my trips combined on one motorcycle. So, for me, I prefer to travel through 36 countries and not have to work for 2 years, rather than sit on a new motorcycle. That's my personal choice, and I feel that I'm allowed to take the piss out of people who decide not to take that choice. And they take the piss out of me for my haircut and the state of my ties. So, it works.
Do you have any corporate sponsorship?
No. Well, we went to, because Honda and a lot of the manufacturers, Honda especially, have got kind of a little bit of a catch-22. And they said to me, we can't really actively endorse you because you basically say, don't buy a new bike, buy an old one. Well, if you're going to buy a new one, don't buy the one that they tell you. Buy the CRF 250 or the 230 because it's slightly lower tuned and it doesn't explode as often. And take one of those around the world because it's better than 1200. And they said to me, the trouble is, we make all of our money by convincing people they need to spend $20,000. That's how it is. I said, the closest that we can do is, he rides the wrong Honda. Imagine what you could do on the right one. That's the closest. And in terms of like sponsorship, there isn't much that we use that people can get.
Well, you should get something from the grocery store at least.
But yeah, so in terms of sponsorship, Honda Honda actually flew me and raced the Isle of Man TT road race last year. As kind of like a thank you. As in, like, somebody saw what I do or did. And they were like, I like this, so I'm going to give you something which is cool, but it's not going to say Honda emissions sponsored it. I'm going to give you something that's cool. And there's a guy who runs a series of Honda dealerships, and he said, I would like to sponsor you the fuel for this trip. So he gave me a race like $1,800 to spend on fuel. And he gave us a little teddy bear, and he said, if you take the teddy bear on the trip, then I'm giving you the fuel for the teddy bear. So that's the way that he's done it. But no, I mean, we've got the odd free thing here and there. You know, like, I needed a waterproof backpack, so they gave me a waterproof backpack for free. Because I'll then. Oh yes, and yeah, we got some